Hey guys, Walls here. Happy Monday. Hope you guys are having a good one so far. So make sure you've checked out the Acts 1, 2, and 3 breakdown videos. I have published your Romeo and Juliet final test. Multiple choice will be going live soon on Go Formative for you guys to take. Let's break down Act 4 right now. Make sure you have your handy handout right here. So at the beginning of Act, okay, well, I guess let's recap a little bit. So at the end of Act 3, you had kind of the middle of the play, the middle of the play conflict. Think of like Back End of Mice and Men, where in the middle of the novel you had this major conflict between Linny and Curly. In the middle of the play Romeo and Juliet, you have a major conflict where Tybalt calls out Romeo for a duel. Mercutio tries to step in, and then Romeo's all like, "No, Tybalt, I won't fight you because I love you. I can't tell you why I love you, but I do. Just know that because Romeo has just secretly married Juliet. Tybalt will have none of it because that dude loves to fight. So he goes after Romeo, but Mercutio gets in the way. And while Romeo is trying to keep Mercutio from hurting anyone and for kind of break up the fight, Tybalt goes under Romeo's arm and stabs Mercutio, killing him. Then Tybalt comes, he runs away. Mercutio dies after saying a plague on both your houses. Romeo is upset. Romeo blames Juliet in a sense. Romeo's all like, "Man, if I hadn't been so like lovey-dovey about Juliet and all this stuff, I could have prevented this." So when Tybalt comes back, Romeo's all like, "Man, I gotta put all that lovey-dovey stuff aside. I gotta fight." And they fight, and Romeo kills him. And so that's where we stand. The Capulet family hates Romeo even more now, because he not only is he just a Montague, he's also the murderer of Tybalt, a beloved member of the family. And Juliet even gets on the hate train there for a second. She has this philosophical rumination about how even though Romeo is sure good to look at, he is pure evil inside. So again, throughout this whole play, you've got this idea of everything contains its opposite. Everything is its opposite if you stare at it long enough. So good becomes bad, bad becomes good. In this case, love. This whole play is about love, but really what we see is not love as a saving thing, but more as a destructive thing. So, anyways, here we are, Act 4. Now the wedding has been moved up, so Paris and the friar are talking here, and Juliet shows up. Now, what Juliet? Oh yeah, hey, let's get your study guide ready. So when Act 4 opens, Paris has been making arrangements with Friar Lawrence for his wedding with Juliet. Why does Juliet come to the friar's cell? So Paris shows, he's like, "Hey, happily met, my lady, my wife." And Juliet's like, "That may be, sir, when I may be a wife. That may be must be love on Thursday next week." Juliet says, "What must be shall be." And the friar says, "That's a certain text," meaning like that's, you can't really argue with that. What must be shall be. So Paris, he thinks everything's going according to plan. We know that it's that Juliet and the friar are in on the wedding. So Juliet kind of just dismisses Paris. Paris thinks that she's just really sad about the death of Tybalt, so he leaves. And then Juliet comes to Friar Lawrence to see if he has a solution. She tells him to find a solution, or she will take drastic measures. Let's see here. So basically, let's see. And with this knife, I'll help it presently. Juliet asks the friar to approve of her resolution to kill herself, a mortal sin. So what she's saying is, unless you figure out a way to solve this problem, to get me back together with my Romeo, I have no choice but to take drastic measures and end my life. So, what's his plan? Down here he says, "Hold, daughter, I do spy a kind of hope which craves as desperate an execution as that is desperate which we would prevent." Basically, he's saying like, okay, desperate times call for desperate measures. If rather than to marry County Paris, thou hast the strength of will to slay thyself, then is it likely thou wilt undertake a thing like death to chide away this shame? Thou copest with death himself to escape from it, and if thou darest, I'll give thee a remedy. So she basically says, "I okay." So all right, let's go back here real quick. When Act 4 opens, Paris, okay, blah, blah, blah. She tells him to find a solution or she'll take drastic measures. She'll kill herself. All right. So now, when she goes there, when she, you got to figure out what are these 6 things that she says she would rather do than marry Paris. So basically, the friar's like, I may have a solution, and Juliet says, bid me leap rather than marry Paris from the battlements of any tower. She'd rather walk off a tower. She would walk in thievish ways. She'd rather walk the streets of a slum or surrounded by thieves. She'd rather sit in a field with serpents, or she'd rather be chained up with roaring bears, or she'd like to be hidden in a vault where skulls and bones are stored, or she'd like to lay down or be hide with a corpse in a grave. So she'd like to do all these things rather than marry Paris. So to summarize, she'd rather jump off a tower, walk the streets, sit with a bunch of snakes, be chained up with bears, be buried with dead people, or hide with a dead man in his tomb. Okay, so what's our next question here? Summarize the plan that Friar Lawrence has to help Juliet avoid this marriage. The plan is, I don't think I have the answer here. There it is. The plan is basically Juliet will take a potion that makes her appear dead. The family will take her body to the family tomb, and there she will wake up to find Romeo waiting to take her away from Verona. So that's the plan. The plan is to fake Juliet's death. Now, the next question is, how is Romeo to learn of this plan, and how will he and Juliet be reunited? So they're going to write a letter. Basically, the friar's going to write a letter explaining the whole scenario. And when that letter is delivered, Romeo will come into Verona quickly, gather up the newly awakened Juliet, and take her to Mantua. All right, so what's the next thing we got going on here? All right, okay, so it comes time for Juliet to take the potion, and let's see what her specific fears are. All right, we're going. There we go. Okay, so her specific fears, let's go here, are that it will drive her mad. So when she gets down here, she's talking about, I will not be distraught, environed with all these hideous fears. So basically, she's afraid that the potion won't work, and then she'll wake up and she's been buried, and now she like lives with all of the bones of her family members that too have been buried there. She's also afraid that it might actually kill her. Or that she'll be buried alive and suffocate. So I want you to think about it. I mean, look at her situation. She has this option. She can take this thing from Friar Lawrence. She doesn't know if it's actually going to kill her or not. And she's more afraid that rather than just simply dying because it's poison, that it won't work, or that it'll work too well, and that she'll actually be buried in a tomb and either suffocate there or go insane because she is now living with the rotting corpses of her family members. It's pretty gruesome stuff if you think about it. Okay, so Lady Capulet, the nurse, comes and gets her and says, "Oh, woe is us! Your daughter is dead." And they all gather around. They think that Juliet is actually dead, and this is her reaction right here. This is just kind of a sampling of everyone's reaction. They are very sad. The dramatic irony here is we know that they're actually they're wrong to be sad because Juliet is still alive. Of course, there's no way they could know that. What's more interesting here is Friar's reaction. So the Friar Lawrence steps in to console the family members, and but he's not just going to be like, "Oh, don't be sad. She's actually alive." He can't say that because the whole plan is to get her out of there. So here's how he seeks to comfort them. He says, basically, you have worked very hard to give Juliet everything she could possibly want, to give her basically heaven on earth. You wanted her to be as comfortable as possible here on earth, to have the best life possible. But now she actually has attained heaven. She is better off in heaven than she actually could be here. So you guys should be happy. You should be you should be happy that she's actually better off now than she was while she was here. All right, so the Capulet, the father steps in, and I like this title here, "The Best Laid Plans of Mice and Men." They had made this elaborate plan for a wedding, and all of that is now off the table. And so everything that they were going to use for the wedding will now be used for Juliet's funeral instead. All right, so there's Act 4, kind of a quick act, Basically, it just establishes how the friar, Friar Lawrence, is going to help Romeo and Juliet get back together. It's all about that plan, and it's all depending on that letter. So in Act Five, a lot of things have to happen. Well, not a lot of things, but some very specific things have to happen right. Romeo has to get that letter. If he doesn't know about the plan is no good. And then he's got to be able to get back to Juliet in time. Of course, we know this doesn't happen because we know the outcome of the play. So come back. We'll do Act 5 here in a minute, and we'll see exactly how things go wrong. We'll see you guys.